Welcome to the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society of Canada's webcast called COVID-19, Looking After Your Mental Health and Well-Being. In this presentation, Dr. Megan Rodway will walk you through what you can do right now to help optimize your mental and physical health during self-quarantine. She will also offer some specific tools to calm your mind and body and help you better manage anxiety and excessive worry in times of uncertainty. My name is Sonia Muro. I am the Community Program Coordinator for the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society of Canada. I will be the host of this online event. During the webcast, you will hear only my voice and the speaker's voice. The presentation will last approximately 45 minutes and will be followed by a 15-minute question and answer period. Because there are many of you, questions may be asked at the end, but only online using the questions or chat function. This presentation is also being recorded, so therefore you will be able to listen to it again on our website while following along with the PowerPoint presentation. We will send you an email when the recording is available. At the LLSC, our mission is to cure blood cancers and improve the quality of life for patients and their families. We offer guidance and support to people affected by blood cancer every step of the way. We offer a vast array of services and educational resources to help people affected by blood cancer and their families. One such service is our peer support program. It is a program that matches people affected by blood cancer, caregivers, and their families with trained volunteers who have been touched firsthand by a blood cancer and share similar experiences. It can be a useful program these days to counter the effects of isolation. We know that the current situation presents many challenges to you and your family. The community engagement managers can help. They are compassionate connectors that can help you cope with your anxiety and isolation during these times. You can reach out to a community engagement manager in your area by calling toll-free 1-833-222-4884. You are not alone. It is my pleasure to introduce our speaker today, Dr. Megan Rodway. Dr. Rodway is a psychiatrist with almost 30 years of clinical practice, primarily in the areas of depression and anxiety. She focuses on lifestyle interventions and psychotherapy to help patients attain health and wellness.
Thank you for this opportunity to do this presentation. And thanks to those of you who have chosen to gift me with the two precious commodities of your time and your attention to watch this. These are my objectives for the next 45 minutes. We're going to start with some common sense tips to optimize your mental and physical health. However, the bulk of this webinar is about anxiety management. Many of us are feeling quite stressed right now, if only because of all the uncertainty we are facing. Stress and anxiety most commonly takes the form of excessive worry, so I wanted to share with you some tools to manage that. But sometimes we're feeling uneasy, not exceptionally worried, so much as just tense or anxious. So I'm going to offer some tools to calm the mind and body as well. And finally, we'll briefly touch on when to access mental health intervention. This is, without question, a really challenging time for all of us, and it may be especially anxiety-provoking for the blood cancer community, for anyone who's immunocompromised, and for those of us who are at higher risk of becoming quite ill with COVID-19. But I firmly believe that within every crisis lies great opportunity. So let's start with some tips to optimize our mental and physical health during this period of self-quarantine. The first suggestion I have is to maintain a regular routine, which includes scheduling time for fun and relaxation. And let's just push the pause button there. I want you to be mindful about what is fun and what is relaxing for you. We know that laughter builds resilience. So when you're thinking about something to do for fun, please think about something that's going to make you laugh. Laughter boosts our immune system, it relieves stress and anxiety, it lightens our mood. So really important to incorporate some laughter every day. And similarly for relaxation, I don't know about you, but what I tend to do, my default mode, is to watch TV or binge on Netflix. And while that's satisfying, it's a bit like eating a bag of chips all in one setting. It doesn't last very long and sometimes doesn't feel so good afterwards. So just be careful not to let all your relaxation fall in default mode of watching TV or Netflix. Make sure that you're scheduling something that is actually restorative. Secondly, I encourage you to attend to personal hygiene. And by this, I mean bathing or showering every day, brushing your teeth at least twice a day, and please, please, please get dressed in clean clothes. It's not good for our mental health to hang around in our jammies and sweats all day. Keep your physical space clean and tidy. Make your bed. And one of the gifts I've found with this period of self-isolation and being at home is it's a wonderful opportunity to clean out cupboards and drawers and closets, get rid of junk, throw garbage away, and make piles of what you want to donate. I think most charitable organizations are no longer accepting donations right now, but that's okay. You can have it at the ready for when this pandemic is over. Next, try to get ample sleep. We need a good night's rest to keep our immune system in good shape. And we all know what it's like if we're sleep deprived. We tend to get more down, we're more irritable, we're more easily stressed. Follow the 80-20 rule around making wise nutritional choices. And by this, I mean 80% of the time, more or less, choose food that you know that is good for you. And 20% of the time, sure, indulge in those things that may not be so good for you, but you enjoy anyway. Please get some form of exercise every day. Exercise is tremendously important for our physical health, of course, but it also has important mental health benefits. It prevents depression, it helps relieve stress, it improves the quality of our sleep, it makes us feel cognitively sharper, more mentally alert. I also encourage everyone to go outside at least once a day. And of course, we'd be maintaining safe physical distancing, but it is important to get out of our house every day. And if possible, have that time outside to be in nature. The Japanese talk about nature bathing, and I just love that term. In fact, it's mental health professionals in Japan for some time now have actually been prescribing nature bathing, meaning they write in a prescription pad, spend 5 minutes a day in nature twice daily. So if you don't have the opportunity to be in nature, then even if you're just standing on your front step or on the balcony of your downtown apartment, focus your awareness, your attention on something in nature, a tree, a bush, a bird. We really, humans as a species, really need to connect with nature. When we're outside, I also encourage us to make eye contact with one another, to nod, to smile. Because of course, when we're scared, when we're feeling anxious, our tendency is to turtle up, to hunker down. And this is reflected in our body posture as well. When we're scared and anxious, we tend to, hunch our shoulders forward. We look at the ground, we avoid eye contact. But wouldn't it be wonderful if we could look at each other through the eyes of compassion, with kindness, if we could be nodding and smiling as if to say, yep, this is really hard right now. Yes, we're in this together. And yes, we are going to get through this. Meditate or pray at least once or twice daily. And I'll be talking about different forms of meditation a little later on in this presentation. Virtually connect with at least one other person a day. We are social creatures. It is in our DNA. We need one another to survive. So really, really important that we connect with one another. Be as present as in the now moment as possible. And again, later on in this presentation, I'll be giving you some suggestions how you might achieve that. Limit your exposure to the media if you're finding it stressful and overwhelming, particularly this barrage of COVID-19 information we're getting right now. Give yourself permission to unplug. Conversely, check the facts about your fears and worries about COVID-19 on reputable sites if you find that your mind is running away with all sorts of assumptions or worst-case scenarios about the pandemic. Record daily at least one thing you're grateful for. Gratitude, like laughter, builds resilience. And indeed, we have much to be grateful for. And it's important to write it down or voice record it on your phone because we forget when we're wobbly. We forget when we're having a bad day. And so it's really nice to have this reference of gratitude. And finally, I encourage you to contemplate how you can be of service during this difficult time. In fact, when I was doing this part of the presentation tips to optimize your health during quarantine, I thought, oh, Megan, you are being so arrogant. So many people in the blood cancer community have already had to go through self-quarantine if they've been immunocompromised following chemo or radiation, or have had a bone marrow transplant. So you guys are probably ahead of most of us on this learning curve. So one of the ways you can contribute, for example, would be to share your tips to keep your sanity when you're homebound, housebound, and what you did during previous experiences to optimize your physical health and recovery. So now let's turn to excessive worry. As mentioned, when we're tense and anxious, Westerners at least tend to manifest the anxiety in the form of too much worry. And after all, our minds are oriented towards scanning our environment and looking for problems with which to solve. In general, worry takes two forms. We can either be dragging the past into the present, or we can be imagining the future in the present. But I want to remind you that the past is just a memory trace, and the future is really nothing more than our imagination. The only moment that actually exists is now. So this creates the anxiety gap, and I find this concept actually quite helpful. The body, of course, is in the present. It is anchored in the here and now. But the mind tends to drift either into the past or to catapult itself into the future. And this creates a disconnection between the mind and body, hence the anxiety gap. So here's an experiential exercise that we might have time to do for maybe a minute right now. I invite you to sit comfortably and close your eyes or look down, whatever is more comfortable for you. And just tap your left knee when you notice your thoughts have drifted into the past, and tap your right knee when you notice your thoughts have taken you into the future, or tap both knees when you notice your thoughts are in the present moment. So I'm just going to ring a bell to mark the beginning of this, and I'll ring it again when it's over. Now that was pretty quick. And sometimes when we're in our head a lot, it's hard to even track our thoughts. They're spinning so quickly. If that was your experience, that I would encourage you to do this exercise again, but to do it for a longer time. But it's really important for us to be self-aware, really important for us to have a sense of if we're tending to drift to the past, go to the future, or if we're present. So let's say that you tend to be preoccupied with past worries. Important questions you might want to contemplate are as follows. Is there another way to look at this past event? Many of us, when we're hung up on something that has happened in the past and we just can't get through it, it's because we are looking at the past event through one lens. We are looking at it myopically. And this is not intended to invalidate your experience. Your feelings were what they were with that event, but sometimes the problem is that we're too rigidly attached to our perspective of that event. The Buddhists have a wonderful saying, which is there are at least 108 different ways to look at an event. And when I happened to share that with a Jewish friend of mine, she said, the Torah, we've got over 200 ways to look at the event. So it is important to be flexible in our thinking. And if you find that you're really stuck on it was this way and this way only, I would encourage you to talk to trusted friends or family members or even a therapist about other ways to look at the event, maybe taking the perspective of other people that were involved in the event. We really need flexibility. We need to broaden the perspective. We need to get a more holistic picture of it. Another thing that happens when we are focused on the past, I think, is that we haven't learned a lesson from that experience. And so a good question to ask is, what did I learn? And if you notice that there's a pattern in your wounding, and by that I mean the same theme keeps coming up again and again in different times, situations, and different people, but the theme, the underlying message is the same, I would encourage you to ask, what aren't I getting from this? What is life trying to teach me right now? And the last thing is, and probably the most important thing, is to ask yourself, what can I do to release this experience? It usually doesn't serve us well to be holding on to it. So forgiveness is one of the best ways to release the experience. And you can ask yourself, how can I forgive myself and or the other person? We're not talking about forgetting, but we are talking about forgiving. And if you find you're still really stuck on past events, chances are it's not very effective. It's a bit like trying to drive a car by looking in the rearview mirror. So this is one of the times that you may want to seek mental health intervention for a brief course of psychotherapy to release those past experiences and really learn what the lessons were embedded in them. Now let's turn to developing the muscle of productive worry as opposed to unproductive worry. And I think we've all been there, done that with unproductive worry, spinning around and around, ruminating about the same thing without resolution. And just before I go on, I want to mention that I'm going to be giving you a number of tools, not just about worry, but also about staying present, calming the mind, calming the body. The biggest, most common mistake that people make is choosing a tool, trying it briefly for a day or two, and if they don't experience some immediate relief, then the person might automatically assume, this isn't effective, or this tool doesn't work for me. And then they quickly grab another tool, try it briefly for a short period of time, and then discard it. Please, please, please don't give in to the temptation to do that. It truly is equivalent to looking at yourself in the mirror and saying, I would like to lose a little bit of weight. I would like to be more toned. I would like to mildly modify the shape of my body. And so you go to the gym for a day or two, and you look at yourself in the mirror on day 3 and you say, I haven't lost any weight. I still have that tummy, and my muscle tone hasn't improved. I guess exercise doesn't work for me. I'm going to abandon it. With these exercises, it's the equivalent of retraining our brain. We are absolutely creating new neural networks, and therefore time and patience and persistence and practice are absolutely needed. So my suggestion is, in the various tools I'm going to be presenting, you'll intuitively find some more appealing than others. There are no rights or wrongs, better or worses with this. It truly is a matter of preference. So pick one or two and dedicate yourself to a minimum of 5 days of practice, 7 days a week with this tool for a minimum of 3 weeks. And then at the end of that 3-week time, then you can say in a much more informed position, that was helpful, or, no, this tool isn't for me. It's just, I'm not getting a whole bunch of bang for my buck. So this tool is called the prescribed or scheduled worry tool. And what you do, very simply, is you put aside time every day to worry. A maximum would be 60 minutes. It could be as short as 10 minutes, but the longest it should be is 60 minutes. And please make sure that your scheduled worry time is not within a 3-hour window of your desired sleep onset time. And absolutely set a timer on your phone or on your stove. You don't want to go beyond your scheduled worry time. Now, within every worry, there is a problem. Remember, I think I said earlier that our mind is absolutely oriented towards scanning our environment, picking out problems for it to fix. So identify the problem that's embedded in the worry. Next, think of as many possible solutions as possible to solve this problem. And if you are stuck in kind of a binary, it's either this way or it's that way, and I don't like either of those options, then talk to other people, family, friends, a therapist, talk to other people to get as many solutions as possible. At least 5, that's the absolute minimum. Remember, the Buddhists say 108, the Torah over 200. You don't have to have that many, but at least 5. And then when you've got, say, 5 solutions, then look them over and decide what do you think is going to be the most effective solution. Now you're writing this all down as you're going, what the worry is, what the problem is embedded in the worry, and what possible solutions are, and what your solution of choice is. Fabulous. That's all you can do for this worry. And then pick your next worry if you've still got time in your scheduled worry time. When the timer's gone off, end of worry time, very mindfully pack up your papers that you've put all this stuff out, you know, the worry, the problem, the solutions, your go-to plan, and put it in a container. I personally like a shoebox, but it could be a Tupperware container. If nothing else, it could be a plastic bag. And with conscious intention and awareness, put that container in an enclosed space, such as the top of a closet shelf or in your garage or down in the basement. Put it away. And as you're putting it away, you're saying, that's it, I'm done for worry today. Now, of course, worries are going to pop up outside of scheduled worry time. Of course they are. They're kind of like a little puppy or a toddler. Of course, they're going to be knocking on the door of your awareness outside of scheduled worry time. But this is where you need to be really firm with yourself. You got to say, stop. I've spent enough time worrying today. I'm going to deal with that worry tomorrow during my scheduled worry time. If you need to, you can write the worry that's popped up outside of scheduled worry time on a yellow Post-it note, because believe it or not, I've been in a position where I'm worried I'm going to forget my worry. So if that's a concern, sure, write down the worry, but just write it down, quick note, and then go back to stop, spent enough time worrying today, I'll deal with it tomorrow. I also suggest you anchor in the present moment, and later in the presentation, I'm going to give you some suggestions how to do this. And then you might want to use a little bit of judicious distraction. But I can't underscore the importance in setting firm limits with yourself on not worrying outside of scheduled worry time. And remind yourself that if you don't have control over your thoughts, no one does. So this exercise that I've just gone through, productive worry, is really using the left hemisphere. We're using a logical, rational, problem-solving orientation. But we can also engage the right hemisphere in productive worry. And the right hemisphere is more spontaneous, it's more intuitive, it's more creative. So an example of that might be to sing the worry out loud. Now, when I first heard about this tool, I thought that sounds quite ridiculous, but I also know it wouldn't hurt. It could be of potential benefit. So when I had a worry, I did indeed sing it out loud. And what my personal experience of that was, is that the worry took on a lightness, a levity. It was no longer so big and ominous and heavy. So I would encourage you to try that. Just sing your worry out loud. I don't sing very well, by the way, which also made it kind of more silly and perhaps helpful. Another option is to draw or even doodle the image of the worry, or sculpt the image of the worry out of clay or Play-Doh. Why drawing and sculpting can be helpful is that we are starting to tap into the subconscious. And I want you to imagine an iceberg. Only the very tip of our functioning, of our awareness, is at the level of consciousness, the part of the iceberg above the waterline. The vast majority is subconscious. And so drawing and sculpting is a way of tapping into the unconscious material. It can give us some clues about why that worry has its hooks in us. What is it about our past conditioning, our past experiences, our past woundings that is making this so difficult to overcome? Another option is to dance the worry out, or to act it out in a story as if it's a one-act play. Journaling the worry can also be helpful, and that can take the form just of regular journaling. Or I particularly like what's called stream of consciousness writing. And with stream of consciousness writing, you're just taking pen to paper and you're being completely uncensored. You're not paying any attention to punctuation, to spelling, to paragraphs, how you've written it. You're just writing down without editing everything that is coming to your mind. Writing with the non-dominant hand can also be helpful to give us some perspective and it's sort of a different experience of ourselves. But what if it's not a specific worry or problem that you're noodling on? What if it's just an uncomfortable feeling, a sense of unease or tension? What if instead of trying to get rid of the emotion, we learn to sit with the feeling? We just felt the feeling without the attached story we have to it. Now, this might sound bizarrely simple, but it's actually quite a difficult practice. Very effective, but actually somewhat difficult to do. And I think the reason for that is that we are hardwired to avoid pain, and instead we want to seek pleasure. And an uncomfortable emotion is indeed painful. So our natural inclination is to turn our back on it, to turn away from it. So it actually is quite difficult to just sit with our feelings. But if we can do that, boy, oh boy, is it ever effective. I like to give my brain something to, it's kind of like giving a child a toy. I like to give it a tool, a scaffold, a structure when I am trying to sit with an emotion. And so this technique called RAIN provides just that. R stands for recognize. Of course, this is where self-awareness again comes in. I'm feeling uneasy or anxious or tense right now. A stands for allow. Let yourself feel the feeling. Now, when I first started reining uncomfortable emotions, I really struggled with the allow piece because my worry was if I open the door on this uncomfortable feeling, I'm going to drown in it. It was a little sort of the image that came to my mind was it's like opening a cupboard door that you know is chock-a-block full of stuff behind that door. And if I open it even a crack, all this stuff is going to come tumbling out. So I would make a deal with myself with allow. I would say, Megan, you can tolerate anything for a minute or 3 minutes or 5 minutes. So if some of your resistance with just feeling the feeling is around the allow piece that you're worried you're going to drown in it, make a deal with yourself. You're just going to feel it for the next few minutes. I stands for investigate with non-judgmental awareness and in all 5 senses what this feeling is. I really encourage a kind of light curiosity in this process. So the first question I ask myself is, where am I feeling this feeling most strongly in my body? Most of the time, the feeling is going to be somewhere between your neck and your crotch, but it could be anywhere in your body. And it's just, you're curious, where am I feeling this? If this feeling had a shape, what would it look like? If it had a color, a sound, a texture, a temperature, a smell, a taste, what would that be like? And then the last part of RAIN is natural awareness. And the beautiful thing is you don't need to do anything here because you've already done it. You're already just sitting with this emotion, with non-judgmental awareness, with curiosity. N can also stand for need. I'll sometimes ask myself, what does this uncomfortable emotion need from me right now? And what's interesting is most often what pops into my mind is it just needed to be recognized. It just needed to be honored. N can also stand for nurture because sometimes when you do the RAIN exercise and you allow yourself to feel what you're feeling, some memories or associations will come up. So occasionally, for example, I've had just the image of myself as a little girl, about 3 years old, standing alone, and I'm frightened. And so I'll ask myself, what does that little muffin need from me? How can I nurture her right now? So that's the RAIN tool. Very powerful, seemingly simple, but it can be a little bit difficult, at least at first. It takes a little bit of courage, but boy, oh boy, I do recommend that you experiment with that one. There's other options, of course, and this is where we're going to talk about calming the mind and the body. Because the mind and body are inextricably linked, of course they are, but sometimes when we live more from the neck up, we forget about our body. When the body is relaxed, the mind will calm down. And simultaneously, when the mind is calm, the body will relax. So let's look at some tools first to relax the body. One of the best researched and one of the oldest tools that we've had in our toolbox for about the past 30, 40 years is called progressive muscle relaxation. That link that I put up is just one that I found when I Googled progressive muscle relaxation. There's a plethora of resources on this particular tool. What essentially it involves is clenching and then relaxing sequential parts of your body, usually in traditional or classic progressive muscle relaxation. You start with your feet, clenching for 5-10 seconds, your feet, and then relaxing, and then moving on to your legs, and then moving into your abdomen, chest, arms, neck, and so on. Our mind learns well with contrast. So if you do progressive muscle relaxation, and I strongly encourage you to give it a try, really pay attention to the difference in sensation between when you're in a contracted, tense muscular state versus how you feel when you relax. Now, the only problem with progressive muscle relaxation, from my perspective, it works beautifully, but you have to be lying flat. And there's no way that you can do that technique, PMR, if you're out in public, or I suppose you could, but you'd look a little goofy flying, lying yourself down on the ground and doing this. So I like these other tools. I think of them as portable tools. They're really using the very same principles as PMR, but with really tiny isolated muscle groups. So the first one is the limp noodle. And this, very simply, we're going to do it now together for 5 seconds. It's just imagining that you're an overcooked, piece of spaghetti. So you're sitting normally now. Now just imagine, overcooked spaghetti. When I do that, I notice that I'm carrying tension in my neck and across my shoulders that I wasn't even aware of before. And so, it's a reminder for me to limp noodle it more often. Another option is called dropping the soft palate. Our palate, of course, is the roof of our mouth. And if you just run your tongue over the roof of your mouth, there's that hard, ridgy part, that's the hard palate. And then about half, 2/3 of the way on the roof of our mouth is the soft palate. So what I want you to do with this exercise is just lower your soft palate towards your tongue. Just let it drop down into your mouth. Just try that now. Another exercise is the Kegel, and that is, of course, involves clenching, tensing the pelvic floor muscles and then releasing them. The Kegel is a really good one if you're quite divorced from your body. If you really are a neck up kind of person and are not very aware of physical sensations in your body, then I would suggest you start with the Kegel, just tensing, holding for 5 to 10 seconds, your pelvic muscles in a contracted position, and then relaxing. And then finally, there's expanding the peripheral vision. Interestingly, expanding peripheral vision is a tool that is taught for most military personnel. It tends to work best with alpha males. And perhaps not surprisingly, it doesn't do anything for me. But anyway, what you do with expanding peripheral vision is just look straight ahead. Doesn't matter if you're focusing your gaze on a specific object or if you're looking at a blank wall. Just look straight ahead. And now try to expand your peripheral vision. Try to bring it even farther behind you. Because I got nothing when I do expanding peripheral vision exercise, I was a bit skeptical about its efficacy. But I was working with a male client who absolutely is an alpha male and taught him this. And he was just gobsmacked at how helpful, how relaxing he found it. So anyway, those are some suggestions to play with. Another tool to relax the body is called tap the toes. And this stems from the Qigong tradition. It's really simple to do. Little ones can do it from about 2 years of age. The elderly can do it, and all of us in between. That website that is listed shows you the basic instruction. So what I encourage you to do after you've reviewed that, it's about a 5-minute YouTube video. Then what I encourage you to do is what I do when I tap the toes every morning. Tap the toes to rhythmic music, music that does not have lyrics, because we don't want our mind getting hooked on the lyrics. It's a distraction. So just rhythmic music without words to it, and tap your toes to the music. Minimum of 5 minutes. And as mentioned, I do it once daily before I go into meditation. The only contraindications for tap the toes is if you're pregnant or if you've had a recent hip replacement. The contraindication in pregnancy is because you're tapping the acupressure points on your feet, specifically around the joints of the big toes, the metatarsal, and that can stimulate uterine contractions. And it's contraindicated after a recent hip replacement because the movement involves a little bit of rotation of the hips. But it's a lovely, lovely tool to use and really quite calming of the body, which in turn will calm the mind. Now, if you wanted the most powerful tool to relax the body, the one that is absolutely going to reset your nervous system quickly, it's Shake the Bones. This is part of an energy medicine tradition, which in turn was adapted or I'm blanking on the word. Anyway, it was kind of modified from indigenous people from the Andes, the indigenous people in the Andes. The website is from Dr. Andrew Weil's website, and it shows Dr. Anne-Marie Chiasson, who is a Canadian trained physician and a palliative care specialist and a specialist in energy medicine, demonstrating Shake the Bones. Beautiful thing, super duper easy to do. I do this as well to music that has got a strong rhythm without lyrics. I run through the track of music, shaking the bones. When the music has ended, I kind of do an internal check. How am I feeling? If I still have some uncomfortable emotion that's sort of inside that I'm still stewing on, then I just shake the bones to another track of music and keep doing that as needed until I'm clear. Fabulous, super powerful, excellent reset of the nervous system. Really relaxes the body quickly. The hardest thing I found about Shake the Bones was my feelings of self-consciousness at first, because it looks a little silly. But once I could get past that or through that and really throw myself into Shake the Bones, it is truly one of my very favorite strategies. Exercise, we've talked about the benefits of exercise. Exercise is another fabulous way to relax the body, and heat in general will relax the body, such as through a warm shower or bath, or even just a hot water bottle or a hot, a heating pad. So we've talked about if we relax our body, we will calm our mind. So now let's turn to some strategies to calm the mind, which in turn will relax the body. The biggest one that I can recommend, the one that I think gets most bang for your buck, is to stay present, to be here now. Even just being aware that you're not present is being present. And I sometimes will imagine I got a little parrot on my shoulder saying, be here now, be here now. It's just a reminder to be in the present moment. And why that's so important is because I just want you to ask yourself the question right now, in this second, is there anything wrong? Are you okay right now? And 99% of the time, the answer is, yeah, actually, I'm fine right now. This now moment is fine. It's only when my mind does what it does, which is drift into the past or catapult itself into an imaginary future, that we start to get anxious and distressed. So let's try to stay present. A beautiful exercise that I find, it's super quick and easy. It absolutely anchors us into the present moment, into our body, into this space and time, is called 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And very simply, it's just looking at in your environment at 5 different things that you see right now, 5 different things you physically feel in your body. For example, I can feel the sole of my foot pressing against the floor, or I can feel my back resting against the couch. It's not feelings like I'm feeling sad or I'm feeling anxious or I'm feeling unhappy. It's physical feelings. It could be internal physical feelings like I've got a rumble in my tummy because I'm a little hungry, or it could be I've got a low-grade headache over the front of my forehead, but it's more physical feelings, not emotional feelings. And then it's also things that you hear in your environment. And try to make it different things you're picking up, different things you see, different things you feel, and different things you hear. The hearing sensation for me can sometimes be the most challenging to come up with different ones because I'm often in a quiet space, but it sort of depends where you're at. So then it's 5 things you see, hear, feel, 4 things you see, hear, feel, 3, 2, and 1. Beautiful exercise. It's really quick and easy. I'm making it sound a bit clunky and complicated, but it's actually a really lovely, easy thing to do, and it absolutely will ground you into the present moment and into your body, and it eliminates that anxiety gap because mind and body are once again connected. Another really powerful tool is the breath. I felt really stupid. It took me about 15 years of clinical practice before I understood why the breath was helpful. But once I understood the physiology of it, that in turn sort of made me buy into it. And when I bought into it, then I would practice it. So very simply, there's 2 branches of the central nervous system. There's the sympathetic nervous system, which is the equivalent of the gas pedal. It's our fight, flight, freeze, collapse. And then there's the parasympathetic branch of the nervous system, which is the equivalent of the brakes. We call it rest and digest. So when we're in a state of tension and anxiety, it's as if we're flooring the car, we got that gas pedal, pedal to the metal. And similarly, when we're calm and re-equilibrated, it's as if we put gentle pressure on the brakes. We're slowing ourselves down. And we are, of course, hardwired for both. The trick was, parasympathetic nervous system is involuntary, so how do we access something that is involuntary? And there's actually 2 ways we can do it. One is through eye movements, and the other is through the breath. Very briefly, when we take a big, deep breath, we inflate our lungs. When we inflate our lungs, we flatten the diaphragm being, of course, that muscle between the abdominal cavity and the chest cavity. When our diaphragm is flatter, then we're gently tapping on the vagus nerve. And guess what? The vagus nerve is the largest nerve of the parasympathetic nervous system. So that, in an oversimplistic Reader's Digest kind of way, is the physiology of why breath work is helpful. There's gobs of different breath work exercises, tons of them. It's really a question of fit and finding one that's comfortable for you. I cannot underestimate the importance of regular practice. And by that, I mean twice a day for about a minute, 5 minutes a day. And almost invariably, some benefit will be felt by week 3. So a very common breathing exercise is called box breathing. And box breathing is, imagine that the vertical side of the box is the inhale, the top of the box is the exhale, the other vertical side of the box is the inhale, the bottom of the box is the exhale. So it's inhale, up, exhale, horizontal, inhale, down on the vertical side, exhale, bottom of the box. Now, I personally don't like the shape of a box. It's not appealing to me. I like a circle. So I will do inhale for the first half of a circle. Exhale is the bottom half of the circle. Whatever shape might be intuitively appealing to you, use it and breathe with it. Another option is to count the breath up to 10. Inhale for the count of 1, exhale for 2. The goal being that whenever you notice your mind has drifted past or future, then you start over again. I've been doing breath work for years now, and I have yet to get to the count of 10. Please check out Dr. Andrew Weil's demonstration on 4-7-8 breathing. It's a strategy that works really well for most of us Westerners. Essentially, it's inhale for the count of 4, hold for the count of 7, exhale through the mouth for the count of 8. You can simply notice the difference in temperature between the inhalation and the exhalation. You can just, when you're waiting, and this is something I do when I'm in a checkout line or at a red light, I just focus my awareness on my breathing and try to breathe more slowly, more quietly, more deeply. I'll try. It's called pranayama. Prana meaning breath, yama meaning work, breath work. Other tools to calm the mind is meditation, and there's so many different styles of meditation. Often when someone says meditation, they're thinking of mindfulness. Yes, fabulous. It's been well researched in the West for the last 10, 15 years. Mental and physical health benefits are incontrovertible. But mindfulness may not be a particularly comfortable style of meditation for you, especially if you're new to meditation. I didn't like mindfulness at all when I first started it. So remember, there are other styles of meditation, movement meditation, such as yoga, Tai Chi, and Qigong. I personally do heart-centered meditation. And again, Dr. Andrew Weil has a video of this style of meditation on his website. Sound meditation is yet another option, and this can either be listening to the sounds in your environment, it can be listening to the spaces, the silence between the sounds, or it can be listening to sounds that induce theta waves, which are deeply calming in our brain. Guided imagery or self-hypnosis, all hypnosis, by the way, is self-hypnosis. So guided imagery, self-hypnosis is a really lovely style of meditation if you're just starting a meditative practice. Again, there's gobs of resources and freebies in that regard if you just Google that. And a recommended app I have I suggest is called Insight Timer. It's got about 6,000 offerings of different styles of meditation. It's got fabulous music, and it's got some inspirational podcasts. I love it for its offerings. What I don't like about it is it can be a little bit overwhelming, about 6,000 different options, but it's a really lovely resource to have, and the fact that it's free pleases my Scottish little heart. So I really encourage you to try out and play with different meditation styles, have fun with it, and cannot underscore the importance of practicing and practicing and practicing with patience and persistence. When to seek mental health intervention? My general rule of thumb is when your functioning is becoming significantly impaired. That is, regardless of how your anxiety is showing up. It might be in the form of too much worry. It might be that you've got a high need for control, which can sometimes leak out in the form of obsessions and compulsions. It might be by working yourself into a state of panic or panic attacks happening out of the blue. Regardless of how it's manifesting, anxiety is running the show. It's driving the bus, and it's interfering with your relationships as well. So we looked at some tips to optimize mental and physical health during self-quarantine. We talked about tools to better manage excessive worry. We talked about tools to calm the body. We talked about tools to calm the mind. And lastly, we briefly touched on when to seek mental health intervention. So now it's time for questions.
Thank you so much. I'd just like to remind everyone that we will have a question and answer period. And I would like to have everyone use the question or the chat function. I'll be reading through those questions. And please remember that I will be asking questions in relation to the topics discussed here today. However, if you have any questions regarding COVID-19 and your blood cancer diagnosis, or if you require any specific resources, we ask that you reach out to our community engagement managers by email at canadainfo@lls.org or by calling toll-free at 1-833-222-4884. You can also go to our website, llscanada.org, for some more information on our COVID-19 Resource Center. So I do have a few questions that have come in. First question, what are symptoms of anxiety and when should I consider getting help?
It's a really good question. And I touched on very briefly in the last slide how anxiety can manifest itself in different ways. I think of it as different flavors. So there's the too much worry, we call that generalized anxiety disorder. There's the high need for control that comes out in the form of obsessions or compulsions, we call that OCD. There's panic attacks or panic disorder, which is having panic attacks either out of the blue or working yourself into a state of panic. So those are the three most common forms of anxiety. And when to seek mental health intervention when it's significantly interfering in your life. I hope that gives sufficient answer to that question.
Thank you. Another question here is, I am an ALL survivor How do I deal with people / family that creates anxiety? With these anxious times, things, as you mentioned, we have been living with, they suck you in with their anxiety because now it's them. I can't avoid them. How do I deal with them?
Oh, isn't that beautiful? Because you're absolutely right. I think what you're getting at is anxiety is contagious, and it is indeed highly, highly contagious. And we can all get sucked into the vortex of anxiety. That's, one of my go-tos is the breath. Um, just reminding myself to breathe more slowly, more deeply, more regularly, more evenly. So the breath would be my first go-to. And I would also suggest that you play with some of the tools that have been offered in this presentation. Play with them, practice them, so that you can develop a more steady, stable presence, so that you can start to be sort of calm in the eye of the storm, the eye of the hurricane. But I can't give you a quick, this is what you do right now that's going to be effective. It takes time, it takes practice. So my quick response is, yes, great, you recognize that anxiety is contagious. Great self-awareness if you find yourself becoming anxious. First go-to would be breath work, and then practice some of the other suggestions that have been offered. I hope that's okay.
Thank you. Can you suggest some ways to help an older relative who may be depressed at this time?
That's also a good question, and it's complicated. We could do a whole webinar on depression and how it's treated and what you can do to prevent depression. What we do know with depression is, we call it the negativity bias of the mind, and we start looking for all the things that are going wrong. So one quick, simple tool is to make a note every day, and again, write it down, of what went well today, and to come up with at least 3 things that went well. And it can be as simple as, I don't know, my first cup of coffee this morning was absolutely delicious, just the right strength, the right temperature. Like, it truly can be little tiny things that went well. So trying to start to rework the negativity bias of the mind and looking for what went well, that's one quick and easy suggestion. I think it's also important just to empathize with anyone, with all of us, if we're going through a rough time now. Yeah, it is really hard to validate that experience, and then maybe to suggest what went well, that they start that practice. And as mentioned, it's a huge area that you've just asked me about, and I'm going to stop there because because it's almost too big an area to give a quick and easy answer to. But thank you for the question.
Thank you. Okay, so how can I help my partner when he is having a panic attack?
When the panic attack is actually in full bloom, so to speak, there's actually not much you can do. It's just got to run its course. Where I think you can be helpful to your partner is in 2 ways. One is if you sense that the person, sorry, let me backtrack. Panic attacks, as mentioned, come in 2 forms from my perspective. One is that working oneself into a panic-like state. So if that's the kind of panic attacks your partner is having, then you can be invaluable as a coach to be sort of, hey, you're working yourself up here. There's a whole bunch of tools. The acronym is TIPS. In mental health, we've got acronyms for everything. There's specific tools we can use to reduce our level of distress, to very quickly bring it down so that we don't get into that panic state where we go offline. So a partner can be coaching and cueing to use some tools to bring it down. And a partner can also be helpful in the prevention of panic attacks, as in, yes, please start practicing some of the tools that have been presented in this webinar and do them together, because as mentioned, it's the regular consistent practice that is the magic here, the important thing here. And we're all more likely to do something that's good for us if we've got a buddy, if we've got someone that holds us accountable, if our partner says, hey, come on, let's do our meditation. Yeah, I know I don't feel like it, but yes, we're going to do it because we're committed to doing it together. So that can be helpful. Just couple of other quick things. People who are prone to panic attacks tend to be really sensitive to the stimulating effects of caffeine. So one quick thing to do is reduce, if not eliminate, caffeine in your diet. And that's not just in coffee. Black tea has caffeine, energy drinks certainly have caffeine, chocolate unfortunately also has caffeine. So eliminating caffeine. Exercise, interestingly, people who are in really good physical shape with high cardiovascular capacity, they don't have panic attacks. They may have other forms of anxiety, but they don't get panic attacks. So again, the beauty of exercise, regular, consistent exercise, that can be helpful in the prevention of panic attacks over time. 478 breathing, which I mentioned, there's that slide on Dr. Andrew Weil's website, 478 breathing. It is found to be curative for people with panic attacks. Not at first, of course. Remember, it's regular practice, twice daily. But by about week 3, you will start to notice benefits from any breathwork practice. But 478 breathing in particular has been found to be helpful for panic attacks. And again, I'll stop right there because we could talk for a long time, or I could talk for a long time about the treatment of panic disorder.
Thank you. I have a few more questions. This one here is, I am terrified to take my 7-year-old ALL warrior to clinic. I don't want to expose him to the hospital environment, but I know we need to go for treatment. I'm assuming this person would like to know how to deal with that.
Yeah, again, that's a really good question. Sorry, and I am just going to ponder that, noodle it, and I will, if I have some, one of the things as a general rule of thumb for the management of anxiety is what we resist persists. What we avoid, it doesn't go away, it tends to grow bigger. So one suggestion, we all have to face our fears. And so one suggestion is to follow the Nike slogan, just do it. Yes, you're frightened. Yes, it's difficult, but yes, it has to be done. So by God, I'm going to do it. And our kids, we talked about earlier how anxiety is contagious. Our kids pick up our emotional state like sponges. So you really need, all of us, but parents in particular, really need to be managing their anxiety effectively so that they are not accidentally, inadvertently contaminating, communicating a highly anxious state to their child when they're going for a necessary hospital or doctor's visit. So those are some thoughts that come to the top of my head. If I have any other thoughts, I will certainly contact LLSC with those, email them. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I have 2 more questions. So the next one is, I have anxiety related to reoccurrence, and at this time, all my appointments are now by phone. How can I deal with the distancing and lack of personal contact?
Yeah, right. I'm a psychiatrist. I've always done face-to-face meetings, and telehealth was available to me before, but I never wanted to go that route because I felt I would miss far too much of the nonverbal communication. And about 70% of all communication is nonverbal communication. So I went for there was a 7 to 10 day period. I put myself in self-quarantine, and so would not do face-to-face meetings with clients anymore, and all of a sudden had no income. That was a very interesting experience. It was actually very helpful because I thought I needed X amount of money and actually found out I need about a quarter of that. I have now started, as many of us psychiatrists and mental health professionals are doing, virtual contact with patients, which is exactly what you're facing, i.e. by telephone or some video link. I'm using Zoom. It doesn't matter what platform we're using. And all I can say is, well, it ain't perfect, but it's what we've got with now. So let's roll with it. the more we complain about how it shouldn't be this way, or I don't like it, the more suffering that we generate. It is what it is. That's all we can do right now is virtual contact. At least it's better than no contact at all. So that's kind of my response to that question. Yep, I get you. I don't particularly like it, and it's all we've got. So let's roll with it.
Thank you. So the last question, so I have been in isolation for 2 weeks and feel more anxious than I did before. I am worried the situation will get worse and my anxiety will as well. How long would it take to get used to this current situation?
Isn't that a lovely question? And it's a very good question, and it really is a difficult time for all of us. That's one thing I want everyone to appreciate, is that you are not alone in your anxiety. You are not alone in your self-quarantine at home. This is something that is happening the world over. We are one humanity. There is comfort in knowing that we are all experiencing much the same. I would encourage you to maybe review this podcast again, this webinar, because there are lots and lots of tools and suggestions, I hope, that are practical, that you can start playing with, practicing daily, and remembering that you don't give them up until you've worked with them consistently for about a 3-week period. And also review maybe those tips around maintaining good mental and physical health, and actual, really walking the talk with those suggestions. But I feel for you. I think most of us, many of us, have what I'm experiencing is days where I'm feeling pretty okay. Don't mind this. It's an opportunity. There's many gifts and opportunities in this pandemic, and simultaneously there's days where I certainly feel more wobbly. There's just kind of waves of feeling more tense and uneasy, which is just when I have to use my anxiety tools more frequently. I would also encourage you to reach out to LLSC. I know that they've got people who know this stuff and are there for you as well.
Thank you so much, Dr. Rodway, for being here today with us and for sharing your expertise. We cannot thank you enough. I would like to remind everyone to not hesitate to contact the LLSC if you need more information or for support. You can reach us by email at canadainfo@lls.org or toll free at 1-833-222-4884. Also, make sure to check out our website regularly to watch all the past webcasts and for the dates of our upcoming webcasts. Please note that a short survey will be sent to all participants after this. We would greatly appreciate you taking a moment to fill it in, as it will help us to offer you the most valuable information in the near future. Thank you all for joining us. Have a wonderful day and stay safe.